So moving over to the second half of the presentation, we're now going to be talking about how to attract the best people to your business. If you're a hiring manager or a future hiring manager, then hopefully this should be useful to you in that respect. And this will be my opinions and my experiences on what I've seen across the industry over many years. I'm going to run through the hiring landscape, so my opinions and experience on what the current hiring landscape is. We kind of started talking about that a little bit before. I'm going to talk about the ideal candidate profile. So similar to a user persona that you might use in UX, you should really be sitting down and thinking about what the ideal candidate looks like using a simple framework that I'm going to talk about. Candidate experience. This is a really underappreciated thing. You know, UX is a massive part of any product design, but when it comes to recruitment processes, nobody takes it seriously. And it can really be the difference between attracting the best people or not. How to attract talent. So tips and pointers to help you attract the right people through your recruitment funnel. And then the last thing, my opinion and experiences on the best interview processes that I've seen across the market. Starting with the hiring landscape. So as we said before, there's been a lot of economic uncertainty. There's been a huge boom kind of post-COVID. Loads of companies were pumped with money. Everything was looking hunky-dory. Loads of companies hired loads and loads and loads. And suddenly the world changed. The economic situation has rapidly gone downhill and that bubble has burst. So a lot of companies have looked to make efficiencies, and there's been very widely publicised redundancies across the tech industry. There's been a reduction in investment in startups. A lot of companies have been outsourcing projects that maybe would have been done here to cheaper kind of nearshore, offshore development consultancies. And that for a period seemed to reduce the size of the opportunity in the UK particularly. But look, I've been doing this for 15 years. This thing is cyclical. I've seen booms and busts. I started my career in 2008, which was arguably a worse economic downturn. I've been through COVID. I've been through this one. I'm still here. I'm still placing people in jobs. There are going to be jobs. There will be more jobs again. It's just a period of time. So if you can ride it out, everything will be okay. And we're certainly seeing that the situation has stabilised somewhat and is improving as well. There are more jobs on the market. There are more placements that we're making, the other recruitment companies that we know are making as well. And it definitely feels like it's on the up. And certainly if you're hiring, it's a really good time to be hiring. If you've got the budget and you've got the projects to be able to do that, there is an abundance of good talent. So that's a plus. Have job seekers' priorities shifted? I think they have. I think it's kind of the post-COVID priorities of having remote work and moving out to the countryside to have more outdoor space because we'd all been stuck indoors so often. It's kind of changed. And I think the priorities that I'm seeing that most people are talking about, having seen this kind of boom-bust situation that's now starting to improve, is more about job security. I think that seems to be people's number one priority. Like, people are maybe taking less risks. They're looking more into the details of a company, how stable they are, how much funding they have, all of that kind of stuff to make sure that it's a surer bet. And I think if you are hiring, it can be really powerful if you're transparent on your positive financial situation. So we've been working with some startups recently as an example that just got a massive funding round. And then we worked with another startup who are just about to get a massive funding round but can't confirm it, and their current runway is until the end of this year. And that makes, like, as a sales pitch, saying like, yeah, we're probably going to have some money, but actually beyond December, you might not have a job. So I think if you've got a positive financial situation and you can talk about it, you should, because that will help you stand out against other companies. Has the work from home landscape changed? A couple of people have asked me about this tonight already, and it definitely has. I think obviously post-COVID, everyone was working remotely. It was like that for ages. Every company under the sun loosened their stance on it, which was a really positive thing. I think that everybody beforehand was always, before COVID, is always asking me, have you got any jobs that are remote working? And in most cases, the answer was no. So I feel like there's a better balance these days, but we're seeing more and more that companies are now starting to require people in the office at least some of the time. And I think that that trend will continue. And also see that there's a difference in kind of candidate perspectives on this. Like some people really want to work from home, and some people prefer to have more of a hybrid model. Some people really like to be in the office. Like we are social creatures after all, and I think that social interaction is really positive for our mental health, for our collaboration, for all of those things. So I think, I guess if we're putting this into the context of hiring, I think being flexible gives you the opportunity to hire a broader spectrum of the people available on the market. Whereas if you're very rigid with your work from home policies or not work from home policies, then that obviously reduces the talent pool that you can access. A very interesting statistic, and obviously this is not an exact science, it fluctuates depending on market circumstances, but typically 36% of people in a job market are actively looking for a job, but 90% of people are potentially open to a move. So that kind of leads me on to the next point, which talks about types of hiring. And if you're hiring in a passive capacity, then you're sticking a job ad out and waiting for candidates to apply to your job, which can be useful. I think it's been more fruitful in the current market based on the current conditions, but actually with that statistic there of 90% of people generally being open to a move if it's interesting or betters their current circumstances, then it's really important to engage with either internal recruitment teams to actively go out to the market and source candidates for you, or engage with external recruiters like us who will do the same and give you access to a broader network of just a small percentage of the job market that might happen to stumble across your job advert. The ideal candidate profile. So this should be a detailed blueprint for hiring managers, interviewers and recruiters to ensure that everybody is aligned on who we're looking for. This should include skills and abilities, both soft and hard, and really go into detail on what that is, what the must-haves are, what the nice-to-haves are, etc. Talk about past work history and experience, and that should include not only the kind of skills and where they've worked, but also the types of companies they've worked, the types of projects that they've worked on that might be relevant to your app or your tech product or your design team or whatever, that they've got really transferable skills. And this is like an ideal candidate profile. And then personality traits that are going to fit your team. So every company has a different culture. Every company has a different kind of person that would work well within that team. And also, I think teams have dynamics. So you can look at a particular team and say, well, maybe we need someone that's a bit more outspoken that can kind of push this person to think a bit differently or work a bit harder or raise their level because of how they operate. Like, there's all sorts of dynamics that should be considered when thinking about what the right type of person to join your team is. Now, for me, and this is one that I'm really passionate about, is about candidate experience, because so many conversations that I have about what it's like to apply for jobs is like people are like broken. People are just like, I can't do this anymore. Please help me. Please give me a nice experience. Like, I'm a human on the other side of this process. And too many companies just don't take it seriously enough. And it's generally an awful experience to try and join them. Which can be a real turn-off to high-performing candidates. So there's a significant competitive advantage that can be gained by designing a positive candidate experience, and your recruitment process is a window into your organisation, and a good experience really can be a differentiator between a star candidate joining you or choosing somebody else. And I think if you're a job seeker, you should really be looking for that as an indicator as well. To create a positive candidate experience during the interview process, it's crucial for recruiters and hiring managers to prioritise respect, transparency, and also good communication throughout the whole process as well. The first thing, clear and timely communication. So set expectations, clearly communicate interview processes, explain when they're going to get feedback, give good timelines, who the candidate will meet, what they should expect from the interview. Regular updates, keep candidates informed about their status at each stage. If there are delays, it's better to communicate this than to leave candidates hanging. Respect candidates' time. Make the process efficient. Like, if your process is going on for 3, 4, 5 weeks, like, it's just disheartening for the candidate. It takes up too much of their time. And as we say in the recruitment industry, time kills deals. The longer things go on for, the more chance they might find something else and get hired elsewhere. Try and streamline the process as much as possible and try and consolidate stages that are maybe you're breaking out into 2, 3, 4 stages down to as few as possible. And ensure that interviews start and end on time. Provide preparation material. So share relevant details about the interview structure and any preparation material beforehand, allowing candidates to feel more confident, prepared, and hopefully perform at their best. If they're walking into a room with a stranger and they've got no idea what's going to happen, they're going to be nervous, they're not going to be thinking straight, they're not going to be at their best. So giving people a little bit of a clue, a little bit of help, helps to settle the nerves, and you'll get something out of it and they'll have a better time. And a personalised experience, like know your candidates. Take the time to understand each candidate's background and tailor the interview experience accordingly. This demonstrates that you value their time and interest in your company as well. And don't forget, this is a human thing. Like, give the human touch. Offer personalised feedback after interviews. Like, so many companies ask candidates to do 3-hour, 4-hour, 5-hour tech tests and then give no feedback whatsoever. And to do so with constructive comments to help them with future applications means that even though they've been unsuccessful in your process, they're still going to look at your company as credible, and maybe further down the line in 2, 3 years when they've gained more experience, they might actually think, actually, I'm going to apply there again because I think they're cool. Don't underestimate the power of that. Create a welcoming environment. Positive first impressions. Ensure that every interaction from the first email to the final interview reflects your company's values and culture. A friendly, inclusive and professional atmosphere can leave a lasting positive impression. A supportive atmosphere. Make sure that all interviewers are trained to be supportive and ask fair questions, and avoid any biases. Like, I think gone are the days where you should be asking interview questions just to try and catch somebody out based on some abstract textbook thing that you think would make them really smart. Like, you should keep it based on what they're going to be doing in their actual role and something that actually is going to help you consider their capabilities in context. Interviewer selection. So interviewers should be approachable, they should be friendly and a standout representative of your team and company values. They should also be from a diverse background, because you're going to hopefully be interviewing a diverse range of candidates, and I think that a broad range of people should be represented in the interview panel. These best practices should help building a positive candidate experience which can enhance your company's reputation and attract top talent in the future. Attracting talent. The most important part, how are you actually going to get people interested in your company and the positions that you have available? I'm going to highlight some tools that you have at your disposal to help you attract them. Understand their motivations and appeal to them. When was the last time you actually interviewed a candidate, and did you truly understand their motivations? Obviously, you need to understand the basic stuff, like I want to work at a great company and I want to earn more money, but it's much more powerful and you can be much more strategic and targeted and really appeal to what their needs are. If you're understanding, I need a better paying role close to home with flexibility because I've just had a baby, right? You kind of need to understand what they're going through and what's going to appeal to them. Grasp the candidate's specific needs is crucial to pitch your role effectively. When we provide, typically for us as a recruitment company, when we provide a short list of candidates, we'll outline each candidate's motivations and concerns. This enables you to focus on what matters to them and address any worries and ultimately give yourself the best shot at securing top talent. if you're working with an internal recruitment team, they should be doing the same thing for you. Or if you're an independent hiring manager, then you need to be doing that at the start of the process for any candidates that you're interviewing with, because it will give you the best chance. 2, job adverts. This isn't a lesson on how to write a job advert. It's really boring, but more just like a high-level overview on what you should include to give you the best chance of attracting talent. And also, it's something that if you're searching for a job, you should be looking out for as well. It should include the following, but without being too long, but long enough to paint the picture. Make it engaging, but it should be consistent with your company tone of voice. Choose a clear job title that is understandable externally to your organization, like VP of software engineering. Like outside the organization doesn't mean anything, it's quite ambiguous. So if you're looking for iOS developer, call it an iOS developer. If you're looking for an Android developer, you get the picture. The job description should tell an engaging story and give an honest and transparent view of the company, team and the role. It's important not to oversell. I think if the role is dull maybe, or it's not so sexy or so exciting, companies fall into this trap of trying to whip it up into something that everybody's going to want, but then you end up misaligning expectations. So when they actually come in, they start the job, they're going to leave quickly afterwards because it doesn't fit what they thought. So it will save you headaches further down the line. Make sure you cover the company, the product, why you're hiring. Is it a new funding round? Are you building a new team? Are you expanding the team for whatever reason? The role responsibilities, the team size and structure, skills required, and give some context so it's not just a list. The working location and arrangements as well. It's really important that when somebody reads the job spec that they're actually coming away from it thinking, I've got a really good picture of what it's like to work at this company, not just I know what skills they're looking for. Use screening questions to help reduce less relevant candidates. So you can do this on LinkedIn, you can do this with your recruiters, you can do it however, but you're obviously going to filter out a lot of the noise, and it is a problem across the industry, particularly with LinkedIn Easy Apply as an example, where it's so easy just to bash through a list of jobs and easy apply to them within 10 seconds. They have improved it slightly, but adding in those filters will really help to weed out people that just aren't relevant. And always include the salary. So many job adverts don't have a salary on it, and it baffles me and it should also include a detailed benefits package. And it actually has been proven to improve response rate on your job ad by 25 to 35%. So always include that salary. The salary, moving on nicely, nice segue into that. Money talks. Every business dreams of bringing in passionate people who want to take a pay cut to work at their company for the next 5 years, but in reality that doesn't work. It's a fast-growing digital space, jobs are competitive, maybe more so in some respects than they were before, but obviously you're going to have more people potentially applying for your roles, but still the very best people are at a premium, and you need to be able to pay competitive salaries, otherwise you're going to be doing yourself a disservice. Often the clients that we engage with aren't actually sure what the current market rate is for a role. And this is so crucial because if your salary is just 10% out, then most candidates won't even consider applying. So it's really important that you're well aligned with that. Doing your research and understanding your competition as well, companies that you're directly competing with for talent, is key to making sure that your package is attractive. Of course, if anybody is hiring and you need some help or support on this, we've got loads of data, salary benchmarking data to help you make sure that you're aligned with the wider market regionally and nationally as well, across disciplines, mobile, design, engineering, etc. Employer branding. So creating an attractive employer brand for your company is essential to attracting and retaining top talent. This should be visible and consistent across all platforms, so your own website, LinkedIn, job pages, etc. Define your unique value proposition. Identify what makes your company special and shout about it. Highlight your mission and vision. Showcase your company culture Use social media and your website to show everything that is great about working at your company. Employees are your best brand ambassadors, so encourage them to share their positive experiences on social media, get testimonials on your website. All of this stuff helps to build job seekers' confidence in joining your business. Invest in employee development, offer continuous learning and development opportunities, create a clear and transparent structure for career progression as well. And that should be clear from the application process, not just once they join and be inside, because I think people want to join companies where they can see their path to success. And engage with the tech community, like attend and sponsor industry events, contribute to open source projects. It raises your developer's skill level and profile, and in turn your companies as well. Talent acquisition and recruiters, get to the right candidates faster. As highlighted earlier, leveraging your internal recruitment team or an external recruitment team to actively source candidates for your mobile jobs can offer several strategic advantages that streamline the hiring process and improve quality of hire. You've got access to a larger talent pool. Internal recruiters or external agencies will have a much bigger network, a well-groomed database to understand who's good, who isn't, when they're available, when they're not available. And typically they'll be able to send you a short list of 3 to 5 really spot-on candidates for that particular role, rather than you having to sift through, at this point in time, 100 CV applications that you're getting through LinkedIn, 90% of which are probably not relevant. Specialised expertise, your internal recruitment team or an agency will have experience in the mobile space, and understand specific skills, attributes that are needed, ensuring that only the best fits candidates are presented to you. Time efficiency, so both internal and external agencies can speed things up and get you to those candidates faster, because it's their job to literally hunt them down and get them in your inbox. It should also improve candidate quality, for the same reasons. And also, obviously there's an upfront cost with it, but it can be cost effective. Using the right recruitment specialist reduces long-term expenses associated with high turnover of staff, unfilled positions, and the opportunity costs of delayed or slowed progressing mobile apps. So moving on. Now we're moving on to the interview process. So this is kind of my take on how best to design an interview process to attract the right talent and help you to understand who fits. It's always the most important part of the process. It's important to remember that it's also a two-way thing. It's not just you trying to assess the candidate's skills and capabilities to join you. It's also them looking at how you operate, how you present yourselves, how you think, what type of engineer you're looking for. And so it should be designed in a balanced way. It shouldn't really be more than 3 stages for perm hires, and probably 2 stages or less for contractors. I think anything more than that makes the process take too long, and as we said before, time kills deals. If it takes more than 2 weeks in total, then it's too long. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to conduct, if you're serious about hiring, why you shouldn't be able to conduct an interview process within 2 weeks. For contract, it should be within 1 week, sometimes less. And if your process is taking longer than that, or you can't commit to it, then you're probably not serious enough about it. So the first thing is make it fun and engaging. It works both ways. A, you're going to have more fun delivering the interviews, doing the interviews themselves, and B, the candidates that are involved are going to enjoy the process, be more engaged with it, and be more excited about joining your company. It's important to design a process that's interesting and relevant to the role, is challenging but fun, and engaging, so that candidates enjoy themselves and make sure they get something from it. It shouldn't just be a tick box exercise. It should be that they learn something and they have a good time. It should be friendly and approachable, relevant to working in the actual role that you're hiring for. Again, nothing too abstract, like actually get people to showcase what they do day to day and what's relevant to your role. It should be practical. if you're a developer, if you're a designer, what you do is quite a practical job. So it should involve those elements, and it should allow you to assess their skills, experience, personality, and most importantly, mindset as well. I think it's really important to understand how somebody thinks, because that's a really big part of how they perform. Scorecards. This is an interesting thing that not everybody does, and it's basically a way to systemize the reviewing process of a candidate's performance in an interview. So it is so often the candidate who lands the job often triggers the best gut reaction from interviewers, which means that sometimes the most qualified person actually loses out to the most personable one. So using this kind of quantitative data on a scorecard can save time and help ensure that decisions are based on merit rather than just charm. How to create one. So you should create one for each stage of your interview process. So obviously each stage of the interview process is going to have different criteria that you're looking for. So pre-agree with the interviewers and the people that are hiring for the role on the criteria for, especially across experience, skills and values. Use competency-based questions focused on their past experience. Prepare 5 to 6 main questions with follow-ups as needed. Each interviewer scores each answer out of 4. And the reason that it's of 4, because it removes that kind of middle neutral number, so no one can really sit on the fence. They're either good or they're not. 1 should be they missed a point. 2 was a poor answer with some good points. 3, an adequate answer. 4, a strong answer which exceeded the requirements of the question. And then after each interview, after all of the interviews have been conducted, you should compare scores and discuss candidates objectively. And also, if you've got multiple interviewers within an interview process, getting everyone to use the same format can help to kind of give them a score which you can then compare against other candidates. Its consistent use of it within the company helps to improve its value as well, and it helps to improve hiring decisions over time. So again, if you need a template for this kind of thing, if you're looking to implement this into your hiring process, then feel free to ask. I can send some stuff over for you. The next phase, and usually the first stage of the process, is an introductory call. So we kind of covered this before in the candidate thing, but it's really your opportunity to make a first impression on the candidate, to excite them about the opportunity, and to assess their general suitability for the role. It's not a deep dive into technical stuff. It's just a relaxed kind of conversational interview to really get to know them and understand who they are, what they've done. Should be around 30 to 45 minutes. And I personally believe that it's important that this round takes place before asking anybody to commit to a technical interview, because again, going back to the candidate experience, I think having a conversation with somebody from the organisation helps to engage them in the process, which is going to make them more likely to complete a technical test. And we'll go into the pitfalls of that later on, but taking the time to have that conversation to get to know them really makes a difference. So when doing this kind of thing, the art of being a good interviewer is to prepare well, so that you allow your space to listen and observe rather than trying to think of questions on the fly. Review the candidate's CV beforehand, outline any key questions you want to make around it, give a good introduction of yourself and the role, briefly explain the process, give a good company overview. Discuss the role, explain the position and its responsibilities, highlight key skills and qualifications needed to help prompt the candidate for the call and later rounds. Get a good feel for the candidate's background, ask about their experience, their skills, inquire about relevant projects or achievements, give them an opportunity to showcase themselves. Cultural fit, like ask about work style and preferences, discuss company values and culture to see how they respond and fit into that. Allow for questions, give the candidate time to ask about the role or company. And then next steps. If you're a lone interviewer at this stage, I recommend giving positive feedback. Like if you're doing it on your own, you should have a feel at that point. And I think that positive momentum really helps to keep candidates engaged in your process. It leaves a positive feeling coming out of it. Explain the next steps in the hiring process and provide a timeline if possible. technical round, the juicy bit, the meat really. There are a variety of approaches that I've seen for this stage, so I'm going to compare and contrast them quickly and give my opinion on what I've seen that works best. So typically there are two approaches to this, either the take-home test or the kind of live coding test. Both have their pros and cons and different applications. The take-home test is kind of the most commonly used. It should be designed to be relevant to the role. It shouldn't be abstract. It shouldn't be like software engineering fundamentals. If you're hiring an iOS developer, get them to do something iOS related, etc. The typical test is like connect to a API, pull some data through, present it in a list view, do some manipulation on the UI. That is typically what most mobile developers do day in, day out, and it is an industry standard for kind of testing that. And you should allow them to use normal tools that they would use in their everyday life. Kind of the pros of doing that from a hiring perspective is that it reduces the time burden on the interviewer compared to doing a live coding challenge where they're spending maybe an hour, 2 hours with each candidate, whether they're successful or not. It's a uniform approach for all candidates as well. And it allows the interviewer to take their time to review the code when it's convenient to them. But obviously the cons are it's really slow. Sometimes candidates might take a week, 2 weeks to just get through that stage, and then the subsequent stages, it slows the process down. You get a lot of drop off because candidates decide that they're not prepared to invest the time or whatever. And it requires the candidate to invest a lot of time with no guarantees of feedback, let alone a job. So many companies I see that just don't even give feedback once candidates invested so much time. No wonder people are kind of put off by this. Improvement, if you're time poor in this situation, I've seen work really well as well, is to record. I don't know if you guys have seen Loom. It's a technology, like if I was presenting like this and online, it basically puts a little picture of me in the corner. I'm talking about what's going on. And I've seen companies use that to explain the interview process and to introduce the company and kind of do the introductory call thing, but in a more remote way. And it's just a bit more of a human touch that I've seen improve engagement. So the live coding challenge, this typically be between 1 and 2 hours. Should be a minimum of 2 interviewers so that you can really one person will be leading the live coding challenge, the other will be observing. And then seen a variety of ways it's done, but it's usually kind of similar to what we described before. Ask them to communicate clearly what they're doing and why, to give them the best possible chance. And typically this is done as a pairing exercise rather than an observation. So from that you'll learn so much more about the way that they think in real time. Also, you'll see a live view on how they tackle problems, what happens when they get stuck, how they get over these things. Get a view on what it's like to actually work with them, I think is a really powerful thing, and see how they communicate. The cons are it's unpopular with some candidates because it's quite high pressure. Some candidates freeze under the intensity of it. It can cause drop off for that reason. It's time intensive for the interviewers. They have to commit to 1 or 2 hours every interview. And there can be technical problems that lead to delays, and suddenly interviews need to get rearranged and whatever. The alternative that I've seen, which is really effective, is actually to ask candidates to present some relevant code that they may have already created. So it reduces the amount of time that they have to invest in the process. It also reduces the amount of time that it takes to get people through the process, because they can go, here's my GitHub repository, this is a bit of code that I've worked on, let's talk about it. And it works really well from that perspective. And then, of course, if they don't have a bit of code that they want to present, then you can just ask them to do a technical test instead. Then it kind of moves on to the technical Q&A. So, we kind of covered this before. It's usually lasts 1 hour, kind of goes through what they've done in the technical exercise to really get a good understanding of how they think, why they approach it the way that they did, get them to expand on that kind of stuff, and to really kind of do a bit of a deeper dive into what they've done. So also a worthwhile exercise. And then the cultural fit round. Do they fit and do they add cultural value? Again, this should be, typically it's with the big boss, it's the last interview stage. It's it can be the most important one, but they're there to really give like a high level overview of what it's like to work at the company, what the culture's like. Be prepared again. Look over the interview notes, understand what the company's core values and culture are. Make sure that it's well structured. Assess their alignment with company values, teamwork and collaboration styles, adaptability, their growth mindset, problem-solving approach, and communication skills. Hopefully, once you get through that process, if you've delivered a competitive offer, nailed the candidate experience and made sure all expectations are aligned throughout the process, you stand a good chance of getting an offer accepted by a candidate that you've chosen. Once they accept, get the formal offer letter and contract out to them within 24 hours. Again, positive momentum, don't leave people hanging. This is a big life decision. You want it to be slick and make sure that no other people are making them offers and getting there before you, turning their heads. Use your recruiter to do your referencing and background checks. It's not an exact science, and sometimes a candidate will just want another role. Don't take it personally, but if that does happen, try and understand why so that you can feed that back into your process and improve it for the future. Again, onboarding, like this needs to be super slick. Obviously, this is the process after they accept, but when they start a new role, make sure that it's clear, it's slick so that they can hit the ground running. Waiting around for equipment and logins on their first day is just unnecessary, and it's a shit experience, excuse my French. You should have a plan to get them up to speed on their role so that they feel effective quickly. You want them to feel positive and happy in their role right from the start, and I think them feeling like they have value is essential. Buddy them up with somebody else in the team as well, so they've got someone to bounce off, ask questions when they don't know something, which is obviously going to happen, and have regular catch-ups with them. Make sure they're having regular catch-ups with their manager and their recruiter to keep on top of any potential issues. That's it. That's everything. I hope that there was some useful tips and pointers, whichever side of the process you sit at the moment. It's not an exact science. This is a people business, and there's so much variation out there that a lot of things can happen. But by following these processes and these tips, it should give you the best opportunity for success. If you need any further support and advice, then please feel free to reach out to me. I'll stick my QR code on the screen, and I'm open to any questions on that. Please fire away. That's my LinkedIn profile if anybody wants to hook me up.
One question on Slido, and time is against us, so I will just jump in and ask that one. So, how effective for avoiding bias is anonymising CVs during review and candidate selection?
For sure, yeah, we see this quite a lot. Like Ford is an example of one of the clients that we work with, and everybody that we submit to them has to be completely anonymised. The CV, even the CV format is standardised as well, so every CV looks the same, and it reduces bias completely. And I think it's a very powerful tool, particularly when you're doing large-scale recruitment into bigger teams. So definitely a worthwhile exercise for sure. Any other questions? Yeah?
I was just going to ask what are the expectations these days of how quickly employers expect you to be able to start, both from the contract side, from my perspective, and then also, I guess, from the perm side as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously quite a circumstantial thing. Typically, we see for perm roles that most companies want people within a month, ideally. Obviously, there are a lot of people that a lot of companies that tie people into much longer notice periods, which is, I think, unfair. I don't really see what purpose it has other than just handcuffing them to a desk that they don't want to be at. But typically, most companies are like negotiable and that kind of stuff. But the ideal is usually within a month for a perm job. But companies are usually understanding and flexible if they're well planned. For a contract, we see anything from a day up to probably about a month. It just depends on the type of company, how well ahead they're planned. With a consultancy as an example, they might land a project and they might need somebody to start yesterday. With a bigger organisation that's hiring lots of contractors for much bigger ongoing projects, then it's more on getting the right people and they can come in when they can. So it does vary. But yeah, ideally, if you can be available to start a contract soon, I know that you're a contractor, so that's always the best thing. Hello?
Is it important to be in the short list who first applied on the position, for example, on Indeed or etc.?
What, so do you mean like in the first batch of CVs that goes through?
10 people or
There can definitely be a competitive advantage to doing that. Typically when a job gets posted, that's when the recruiter is going to be most active and most like engaged in the role. Once it gets like 4 or 5 days in, there's 100 applicants that have come through, then there probably is an advantage to being first. But it's probably small and it probably varies depending on the team. And typically they will still sift through every application and pick out the people that are most relevant. It's obviously challenging in this market where there's so many applications happening to stand out in that way. So any like setting reminders or alerts for relevant jobs that come up and being quick to respond to them, I think can only be a good thing. Any other questions? To the pub. Thanks, guys.